sure. It's gonna be related.
Let me know when we start.
It started.
Oh, okay.
There we go. All right. Sorry for the delay, guys. Welcome back to Trueleon Army Podcast. Today, I'm honored, as always, to have Tony Rogers. Just recently wrote, "What Legacy Will You Leave?" And the purpose of this video today is not like a book review or to go in depth of like how I feel about the book, but more so like why you wrote it and things. So I prepared some questions, and we'll get right to it.
Let's do it.
Let's see here. Notes. So, Tony, and we had conversations before because I remember we had a legacy video where we talked about. So I'm confident this has been burning in your mind for 2 years, and you even stated that in your book. But what actually inspired you to explore the theme of legacy in your book?
So when I was here last time, it was about a year ago, and I told you I was going to write this book and I was going to come back and talk about it. So that's good that I appreciate you having me back on to actually talk about it now that it's done. Mm-hmm. So you said what inspired me to do it?
Yeah.
Legacy is important. It's important to me. It's an important way I live my life, and I think of myself as living a legacy conscious life, and I want to help others do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what inspired me was to get something written in stone, get something set in stone where I can pass it on to others and pass these lessons that I learned from studying other people who live a legacy conscious life, and hope the reader do the same thing.
So what like personal experiences exactly or influences or personal experiences that shape the ideas behind your book?
Well, I think studying leaders who have left a positive legacy, mm-hmm. Martin Luther King and Barack Obama. I mean, you can name anybody. It can be any sphere of life. It can be sports. It can be Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson. All these great people who have left positive legacies on the world, and it's something that I want to do myself. So that's like the big inclination. I want to do that. I followed in their footsteps, mm-hmm. and I studied them to learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. I know how to do it. I haven't done it yet. Mm-hmm. I know how to do it. So it's like, what's the roadmap? What's the steps it takes to get there? And I put them down in the book.
Okay. And not to get, all the way, but so how do you define the concept of legacy, and how does it play a role in your own life?
I define legacy as one's social influence beyond physical death. And I wrote that in one of the chapters in the book. So what that means is that everything has a death life cycle, a birth, death life cycle. Mm-hmm. So everything is birth, and everything is going to die. So the legacy you leave is the influence that you have after you physically depart Earth.
So that's how you define it.
Exactly.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a portion of the book where you talk about is beyond just physical, but spiritual and many other things in which you talked about as well. Because with legacy, it's so malleable, right? Because it could be good now, but change later. Like the zeitgeist behind
the definition doesn't change, but it applies to different spheres of life. Mm-hmm. So in the back of the book, in the last chapter I have where you plan your legacy as it applies to 6 different areas of life. One being financial. What kind of financial legacy do you want to leave? Another may be mental or intellectual. What kind of intellectual legacy do you want to leave? Writing these books, this is my 8th book. This is a part of my intellectual legacy I want to leave behind. And it's purposely done for that reason.
Right. And I'm glad you pointed that, although this is your 8th book, but this is the 4th book in your visionary series, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So now how did the writing process for this book differ from your previous works?
Well, writing the book is very difficult, and you have to tailor it to the audience you want to reach, and also the message you're trying to get out there, the specific message you're trying to deliver to that specific audience. Mm-hmm. So the Visionary Library is the fourth book in the series. Mm-hmm. This is the fourth book in the Visionary Library series. And these books are written for people who want to make a difference in the world. I define a visionary as a common person with an uncommon desire to make a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's who I am, and that's who these books are written to. Regular people, regular everyday people, but we have a desire, a hunger to solve some kind of problem in the world that makes a difference in other people's lives.
And none of that comes in with the sound. But let me ask you this. And when you started the book, you also pointed out, and just to let your readers know, once you guys decide to get the book, give me a minute, YouTube world. No, you can't. So with... Okay, I'll do it later. Sure. That's fine.
Domino's.
Hey, YouTube world. YouTube world. Hey, that's my legacy right there. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it ain't perfect. We're shooting from the hip, recording live, but to continue with what I'm saying from your different works, when you open the book, it was our interaction that kind of like pushed you to say, "Hey, let me get this done." When I shared the news about my father passing.
Yeah, So
I guess that, and if I may continue, that's where I was meaning, like, how did it differ? Because, you started off with a very touchy subject, which is mortality. Because when we're young, we don't think about that. We've known each other since we were 16, and I felt invincible.
Yeah.
But as I started losing people, grandparents, and then I lost both of my parents, it took the term legacy. Like, what legacy did they leave behind?
Yeah.
Is it just us, the children? And, with you starting off with mortality, I think it's the most potent thing you can start off with, because no matter what, we're going to die.
Yeah. And I think the ignorance of that as being a young person, you just don't think about that. You just don't recognize it. You think you have so much more time than you actually have. Mm-hmm. And that's just part of being ignorant. Mm-hmm. And as you mature and you grow, you understand that life is very short. As you start to lose people, as you just said. Mm-hmm. You see that, hey, I'm just like them. My time is coming. Mm-hmm. And you don't know when that time is going to be.
Right.
It could be tomorrow. It could be today. It could be in 10 years. It could be in 20 years. You really don't know. Mm-hmm. So how can you live the best life, the fullest life that you can live with the limited time that you have on this earth?
So let me ask you this. Let
me go back to what you said about your father passing away, because that did spark that in me. That did help me out. Mm-hmm. So I've had this idea to write this book for several years, and I probably got 50 different ideas for books I want to write, and I tackled them as I by priority, and as I gain more knowledge, I feel enough to put it in the book, because you have to have quite a bit of knowledge to actually digest it and make it concrete enough to put it in book form.
Right.
So I felt I had the knowledge, but I needed that extra push to get that done. And you telling me that story about your father, what had happened to him, just so sudden like that, sparked that in me to get that done. And that's why I started the book with the realistic, story of what happened between me and you, and your father passing away, and it got me thinking about mortality and the shortness of life, and how your life can be motivated by being conscious of your death. So that's why I started the book the way I did.
Yeah, and just to add for personal experiences, like I said, so my father passed away this past September, and I did contact him and share this, and I assume you already, because we talked about it for a long time regarding legacy, and I'm assuming you had notes and things, and it was just like this key moment that was like, man, let me put this together and push this out.
Yeah, that's how you write books. You have to gradually over time build notes and build sources and different ideas that you want to put in a book in categories. That's what I do. So I had this in there. I didn't have the title, but I had the inclination to write on legacy. I kind of had tentative ideas of the title, tentative ideas of chapters I wanted to put in there. I didn't know where I wanted to start, but I kind of forced myself to do it once it sparked in me. You know how you can get inspired to do something, but it'll fizzle and go away if you don't follow that vein of inspiration.
So
when
was
when I got that vein of inspiration from talking to you about your father, instead of me allowing it to fizzle out and go away, I followed it and I forced myself to sit there and get the book done versus saying, okay, it's a good idea. I should do this. And I said, no, I'm going to do this and it's going to be done within 30 days. I set the time and I did it. Forced me to do it.
So that kind of answers my next question, which was like, if there were any challenges or surprises that you encountered while like delving into this, because, you know, was there anything that caught you off guard, like while doing your research or while like really peering into legacy? Because just from the definition, it can seem surface level. We all know we're mortal. We all know we're going to die. We all know that our actions carry consequences, be it good or bad. And legacy can be where you made good impact on the world, or it could be bad. But beyond the surface level, like when you started to really dig in, was there any surprises, like from a religious standpoint? And I say this, we had a talk on religion, remember that? And I was very like on the fence about that. And I would tell you, and it could be just the fear of dying, but it really brought me back into religion. It brought me back into looking about life and how our ancient...
You're referring to your father passing?
Correct. Like how, you know, our ancestors, those who, you know, maybe wrote the Bible, and I'm not getting into the specifics of that, but how did they come to grips with this very touching events of losing people and, you know, different cultures? So it was like a touching moment for me to like, let me pull myself back into religion. And legacy didn't so much come for my legacy, but it was like, well, I believe in Christ and his legacy should live on. And, you know, like, and not saying you have to agree with that, but I mean, like, what was like the surprise or like a true revelation?
So you said, what challenges did I encounter doing this? I think battling my own legacy and my own mortality. You know, when I say battling, I mean mentally battling it. This book forced me to examine my mortality. And if, you know, right now, the whole first chapter is about mortality. Mortality means death. And it's like, who wants to really think about that? Who wants to talk about that? When I had the idea to start with mortality, I didn't know where it would. Initially, I didn't know where I would put that in a book, but I knew I had to put that in a book because that's what legacy is. It's about what happens after you die. So that whole first chapter, I had to think about my death, think about exactly what I wanted to leave after I passed away in different areas of life, and I had to examine philosophical ideas of death, and it's a touchy thing, you know. Even I think in the preface or the introduction, I talked about how it was my 39th birthday when I wrote this book, and it was that day forced me to look over my life and how far I've come. I'm grateful. I've come a long way, but I'm not where I want to be. So it was just like, do I even want to write this in here? I tried to be more vulnerable than what I usually am in my books.
And I did feel that when reading it. It felt like I really did. Very vulnerable.
I try to put more of my personal story than my personal inner thoughts that nobody else would know. I didn't talk to anybody about these thoughts I'm having, but I did write them in the book and leave them in there for other people to read, so it can be more relatable. You know, it can connect more to the reader.
So, and that may coincide with the next question. So how do you think readers might be inspired or prompted to reflect on their own legacies after reading your book? Because you do have a call to action with several calls to action, but like the main ones where you're going through the steps and you're writing it out and you're thinking about it. I mean, because that's the goal of this book, is to, you know, what legacy will you leave?
Yeah, the goal is to have the person walk away. Well, a couple things. First, I want the reader to be more legacy conscious in general. It's something people normally, I don't think, the average person doesn't think about legacy on a daily basis. You don't make decisions based on your legacy. You just go through life doing your thing. You got your normal routine you go through. Well, I'm asking you in this book to walk through life in a more legacy conscious way. You know, should you make this choice? Well, based on legacy, you probably shouldn't. So how about you think of things going forward in that vein? as far as call to actions go, what was your other question?
Well, like your call to action, because you have the sections where they can write out things and answer the questions, and like so. Do you believe that you motivated them or prompted them to be able to take those steps to start living a legacy conscious life?
Oh, for sure. If you go through, read the book and you go through the activities and things I have in the book for you to do, answer the questions. Mm-hmm. They're hard-hitting questions. They're not.
They really are.
They're not. Yeah, I mean, they're not surface level questions. You have to dig, and you have to. If you answer them honestly, it's going to pull something out of you that you probably didn't even know maybe was there.
And I would say to YouTube world that when you do read this book and you get to the section where you are answering those questions, I felt like it was something I couldn't answer right away. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had to walk away, put the book down,
had to marinate.
Mm-hmm. I had to come back because I read it twice, and I felt like, let me talk to my legacy. Hey, shut my door.
It's not open. They just outside the door, I think.
Oh, okay. But I just feel like that, I had to walk away from it and truly think about these questions, because it was before even picking up this book or even considering legacy, I was definitely thinking about my mortality, given my personal situation that happened. I was thinking about, wow, I am losing my loved ones, people that I've known my entire life that I have expected will be here.
Yeah.
Like I thought, oh, they would be here.
You kind of just take it for granted.
You take it for granted. And again, I wasn't even thinking about their legacy, because you have to understand, with us all leaving, they will have a legacy also. So I start internalizing, well, I'm their legacy. I'm their legacy. Although I'm not where I want to be, but I know I'm further than where they were. And I know that a lot of lessons,
which is what they will want,
in which what they will want. And let me ask you this: how do you prepare your reader? Because with yours could be different than mine. Like, you're comparing yourself to the greats, right? To
legacy in general.
Yeah, legacy in general.
No. You.
What I mean by that is, and I want to clarify that. Let's say a typical person. Let's say their idea of legacy is just being a good person, making sure they're financially dependent, and if they have children, that their children are model citizens, right? Mm-hmm. Is that comparative to, let's say, writing the best book or making the best movie, or creating impact that touches the world? Is it, you understand, because there's levels of legacy. Like, how do you measure that? Or am I being...
Well, success in general is based on individuality, and legacy is the same way. So in this book, I don't tell you, you're not living my legacy. You're not going to leave my legacy. I leave my legacy based on my decisions and the actions that I take daily. Mm-hmm. And you're going to leave your legacy based on decisions and actions that you take daily. Mm-hmm. So it's more so about you discovering your own rules to your own legacy. And I give you my ideas on what a good legacy is, and maybe how you can think through yours. But at the end of the day, it's for you to decide that. And I could say that several times in the book. Mm-hmm. I don't want people to... it's like you said about what's the quote? Comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. Comparing your life, you can be inspired by comparing your life to other greats and different people like that. Mm-hmm. But you can also get to a point where you become ungrateful for your own,
right? And
maybe trying to be like somebody else. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge your own self, your own legacy. What do you want to do? It's about individuality, like I just said a second ago. So nobody can be me. Nobody can be you.
Right.
Be yourself. That's what we want you to do.
Well, and I brought that up for listeners if you're watching live, or if you come back and review this at a later time. I brought that up because it's an easy thing to do when thinking about legacy. Because if you feel like, I have not reached this, I have not done this, I have not, well, what have you done? You understand? If you walked out the door and you're gone at this moment, what have you done regarding legacy? And it was something that I had to self-reflect with even before even starting your book, because I always felt like, well, I want to reach this, I want to have this type of house, I want to have this type of money, I want to, all these things I had in my mind.
Yeah.
And once I lost my father, and again, I lost other people, and you don't tend to think about it till your whole world around you starts to crumble. And it was just like, wait a minute.
It's like a wake up call.
It was a wake up call. Yeah. And I was just like, wait a minute, what if I just walked out right now?
What if you passed away today?
Yeah. What is my legacy right now? I know what I want it to be, but what is it right now? And I was comparing it to greats and people like who made their personal journeys and accomplished things that I look forward to accomplishing in the future. And it did start to rob my joy and not being thankful of like, wait a minute, I got, 7 beautiful children. I have a family. I have all the things that many men would love to have.
Right.
Yeah, I have a career. And it was one of those things where I got so caught up in not being thankful and of the legacy that I established right now that it robbed the joy. Yeah. That
every day is a gift. Like, since we don't know when our time is going to be up, all we can do is maximize today and hope that we live longer and take every day as a gift and actually use that. If you wake up thinking every day is a gift, then you have to walk in that daily. You express that by how you treat people, how you live, how you treat your children, how you conduct yourself on a daily basis, because that's what's going to sum up your legacy at the end of the day.
So the main reader you're targeting right now, I feel like what we consider ourselves middle-aged men, 37, 39, almost
age-wise.
Yeah, still a young man, right?
Yeah. You talking about us?
Yeah, you and I.
Oh yeah, we young men.
Yeah. Well, I meant like your target audience, right? So, for example, I tried to talk to my son about legacy. My oldest son is 19, just to give you a point of reference. And like you said, it just go over his head. It's like, oh, okay, I'm doing my work, I'm going to school, doing all that. But it's because I'm thinking about generational legacy with regards to like making my last name Young means something that carries weight.
Because you're more mature to the point where you have that point of reference.
I get it, and I know.
He don't have that.
He don't.
Right.
And I'm just saying, like, from writing this book, like when you were thinking about your target audience, were you thinking about people in our age group, or were you? And of course, you will want everybody to read it, just like I would want everybody to soak up this video. But I understand that there's going to be people who may be looking up legacy or want to see legacy.
I don't think. Well, I can say for sure. I wrote it. So age wasn't my primary thing. It's more of a mentality. You can be 15 years old and have a more legacy-minded mentality than somebody 55 years old. It also depends on what place you are in life, what phase you are in your life. If you're to a point where you're kind of just barely trying to get by, make ends meet, you may not be so focused on legacy at that point. But when you're at a more level where your basic needs are satisfied, you got food on the table, your kids are okay, or you may even have kids, now you're to a point where you can go up the hierarchy and focus on giving back to the community and what legacy you're going to leave and setting up your will and all these other things that accomplish legacy. So it just depends on where you are in life, not necessarily age, more of a mental maturity type thing.
Man, that's crazy. You pointed out that you're right. It's not an age thing because, yeah, I could definitely see a 15-year-old probably have all this sorted out, and you could see a grown 55, 60-plus-year-old man.
We all know people who fit into both boxes.
Yeah, fit in both boxes. Yeah. So I guess with that, that definitely covers that. And I hate the term legacy when I think about it because it used to become very like morbid and like it was just like death when I think about legacy.
There's a beeping noise in my ear. Does that mean it's about to die?
I don't hear no beeping noise.
It was in my ear.
Oh, probably because it just didn't connect or whatever. Oh, okay. No biggie. It's props. No biggie. As long as you fuckers hear it, that's all that matters. But where's my train of thought at? When I think of legacy, and the reason I brought up age is because now you're thinking about death. Now you're feeling like, hey, I may be over the hill. I may have 20, 30 years left. And when you're young, how do we change that narrative to where young people can buy into legacy? Do you understand? Because I think it's more detrimental for young people as they're now in such a digital age where their legacy could be tainted and reputation forever from a decision they make in their teenage years.
That's very hard, man. It's very hard to get people who have not reached the mentality, the maturity to understand what you're saying about how their actions have consequences. Mm-hmm. Their current present actions have future consequences. It's hard to get young people to understand that and realize the importance of that. So they kind of just do. We did the same thing.
Right.
So when you're younger, you kind of just act on emotion. You don't think logically, should I do this thing? What's going to happen? You're like, no, I'm going to go for it, you know? Mm-hmm. So that could have detrimental consequences on your future life that you're trying to project in the future. It just depends.
And I get it's difficult, but I'm just meaning like as someone who is an author and you're trying to get this message out, because I'm assuming you may do more interviews or more podcasts. And, you know, the more purchases, the better. But I'm asking, how do you change that narrative? I understand it's difficult, but how do we change that narrative when, at least for me, when I always thought about legacy, I always just thought about death. I always just thought about, okay, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to have. Like, all right, let me have my life insurance together. All right, I'm going to have this much money. This what you get. This what you get. It just always come across as death.
I don't think you can separate legacy from mortality, from death. That's literally what it means. You know, you can't separate the two. They go together.
Right.
And like I said, I get that it's kind of weird. That's why I didn't want to cover mortality in the first chapter, but I didn't have a choice.
Right.
When I couldn't discuss legacy without mortality. That's how you define the word. It's based on what happens after you die.
I know.
So you can't separate the two.
Right.
But trying to get a young person to understand that they are going to die and you don't know when that's going to happen. You don't have to explain it that way, but it's basically just long-term thinking. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how I would probably explain it to a young person. Mm-hmm. Long-term consequences based on your present actions. You know, how do you want your life to be? A vision. You know, get them focused on the vision.
Right.
Your future vision of the future. What do you want to build? What do you want to have? What do you want to be? What do you want to become? That's how you want to, think of legacy.
And I think this would be the perfect gift for the entire family to read together.
Yeah, read it, talk about it, go
right.
through the questions together, and really dig into what we want to build as a legacy together as a family. Mm-hmm. You know, what do we want to leave behind for our kids and their kids and their kids.
Right.
You know? So,
and I would think also, like I said, it's not an easy questions to answer, but I also feel like that maybe you should revisit it every so often, just because the way you may feel today, as you grow and become more mature, you may start to develop different ideas when it comes to your legacy.
Absolutely true.
Like, hey, this is what I think about, this is what I value. And I know as I was younger, I valued, and you touched on this in your book when you talked about how at a certain time you may value going to work and doing things, and you may start to pull back from that. Like, hey, I value my time with my family more, working. And I worked overseas 84 hours a week, and we talked about this before. I was making so much money, and you had said something to me. I was literally getting on the plane, and you was like, dude, this is going to fuck you in the long run. I know the money is great, but you're going to have to make a conscious decision to where shit is either going to go really bad.
Yeah.
And your legacy when it comes to money.
I think we were talking about your relationship with your kids, I think.
Exactly.
How it affects that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, when you're doing 84 hours on the other side of the world,
right,
it's either or. There's no kind of in between there. You can't manage something when you're not there, period.
Right. But my idea about legacy and building was all about, I'm sorry, what? Is somebody knocking at this door?
From across the hall.
Oh, that's cool. But hey, we got some likes. We got some viewers. Thank you guys for the likes. I like that. As we're still going, just in case if you guys do decide to purchase the book, his name is Tony Rogers. Within the description, there's a link to the Amazon page. And make sure there's a deal going on right now for your books. You can get them off for was it like $5 or something?
I believe so. Amazon puts deals up at certain times, so I'm not sure what they have now. But I believe you can get all four for like $5.99 or something like that.
Okay, you ain't got no control over that?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I do and I don't. I didn't set this particular deal though. Amazon did.
Oh, I just looked at it yesterday. Hurry up and get that shit. Hurry up and get it right now. Get all 4 of them motherfuckers. Damn, I'm mad. I bought each one that was new for full price. I seen that. I said, damn. But back to the point that I think that at that time, my idea of legacy was the financial well-being of my family versus the spiritual and the how they will function as an actual person in society. So that's why I believe that it's something that you have to constantly reevaluate, something you have to constantly think about as you mature, learn, read more, go back to the book, re-answer those questions. I would say keep a dialogue or
like an ongoing
like a diary
record of what you
record what you're writing, correct? Where you're like, hey, on this year, this time, I felt like this was very important for my legacy. And like I said, financial is very important because that in its own can destroy somebody. I mean, you could be positive all day, and if you broke, it's not going to have a good day.
And that goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. It depends on what phase you are in life.
Right.
If your financial needs are taken care of, other priorities what's going to come ahead of that. But when you don't have no money, that's going to be the priority because it affects so many different areas of life.
Yeah.
But in the book, I mentioned that I reevaluate my legacy about once a month. And I just try to think through what I mean by that is how am I progressing? What am I doing? Do I need to change some things? Am I really living the life I say I want to live as far as the choices that I make daily? Am I spending enough time with my kids how I want? Am I distracted by something that's taking me away from my children more than I would like? Because life functions on habits,
Right.
and you just you drift off course. Anything long term tends to drift off course. So it's like the course correction is my monthly progress report is what I do with myself.
Okay.
And I look over my health. How many times did I work out this month? How many times did I not? How many times did I stay on my diet this month? How many times did I not? Have I talked to my mother? Have I talked to my father? I'm lucky enough to have my parents still here, but they won't be here forever.
Right.
So how much time am I spending with them as they get older and up in age? How my communication, my work, my career, all that stuff is important to me. So you got to reevaluate things over time.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's just an overall balance too, because
your whole life.
Because I think that if you focus too much on one thing, something else is going to take away. Because
Always.
It's if you think about it, it's like 100% pie you're working with, or 100%. And as you pull too much in this area, you're taking away out in that area.
Because you only got so much time in the day.
And not even just from a time standpoint, as you stated in your book, time is the most valuable commodity, but just from a mental resources.
Energy resources,
yeah. Because if you're, let's say you're a gym rat and you're at the gym 3 hours a day and you have this tight schedule. I go to the gym at this point, I get out, I work, then I read, then I do this. And then you realize like, man, I only spent 20 minutes with my children. Did I impart in them the knowledge that I'm getting?
Yeah.
Because let's say they become teenagers and they sound dumb as hell. Or, they don't have the habit of reading. They don't have the things that you will want them to have. So it's like, then you take that as a failure. Like, now I messed up on my legacy. And
that's good you said that. In the back of the book, I think it is, I talked about one of my biggest fears, and that's a lopsided legacy. Oh, it scares me so much. Lopsided legacy is when you hear stories of a rich person who doesn't have a good relationship with their kids, or like you said, a gym rat, but maybe they don't have a good relationship with their wife, or they're broke. I want total success.
Or their children are fat.
Yeah, I want total success, what I call holistic success. And that means a measure of success in every major area of life. Health, wealth, financial, career, spiritual, all of it. You may not be number one or whatever at everything, but some kind of measure of success in each area of your life, because they're all important. It's just these pillars hold life together. So why not try to excel at each one? Even if you don't make it, trying to excel is better than not trying at all.
And I would say this. I mean, I think we could touch every single point in the book, but I feel like we would do a disservice from those who are looking to buy it. And I definitely, again, I want you guys to buy this book, because if you're not thinking about your legacy, if you're not considering that, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're not in touch with your mortality. You are going to pass away. When it will happen, like you said, we don't know. You don't know. And if you're not thinking about your financial well-being beyond when you leave, you're not thinking about your health with regards to just with your children, with how you promote it, if you're not thinking about just being a good functional person, you're doing yourself a disservice. I recommend you highly read this book. I believe we really touched on the surface, and I didn't want to like give a tell-all for the book, for sure. Mm-hmm. Right? Because he has a lot of personal things that are very relatable for the reader. The call to action, which I believe is the best thing, which is the one that actually most times I'll read a book and I'll read it once and just be done with it. But I think with this, the actual call to action, where you like honestly answering these questions, and you have to be honest with yourself. You have to sit here. Hard part. It's really hard. And like I said, you have to walk away, think about it, maybe talk with your spouse or your children. And I was talking to other people. I literally hit them up and I just say, hey man, I really want to talk to you about your book. and this was the reason why. It was really that call to action. So if you had something, you want to close with and really like let our viewers, potential purchasers understand like what your call to action is. First, buy the book. That's the main thing. Like,
I mean, that's what I would say. I would say buy the book. It's a small book. Mm-hmm. I only write small books purposely because people are busy, and I don't believe you need a lot of space to get a concrete message to someone. So it's an important message. I put my life into it. As you'll see, it's very relatable. I'm very vulnerable in the book. Mm-hmm. Buy the book, read the book, and do the exercises. If you do the exercises, the message will hit home. You'll live a more legacy conscious life. I promise you.
Yeah, and he's right. It's a small book. Man, I literally read it in like 40 minutes.
That's what.
Literally.
But how long did it take you to answer the questions?
No, now I told you that took me a while. That's why I had to like go back and read it again and so with that, it's going to take you a while. So it's a quick read. It's a quick to the point. It's like a lecture. That's what it felt like. It felt like a well-defined, straight to the point lecture. But the homework is what's going to take you the time. That's going to take you the time to sit back, answer the questions. So with that, I don't want to downplay the size of the book,
Yeah, I mean, it's purposely structured that way.
Yeah.
Take the message and you'll definitely live a better life for sure.
Well, guys, I thank you for watching. Oh my God. Did you guys see that? Here we go. Back there, probably clipped sound or something. Crazy. But listen.
Yeah, I bet it's all right.
Yeah, that's all right. Listen, thank you guys for watching. Today was live. We're trying to do something different when we do talk about something. It's from the hip. As you hear my family going, it's Christmas Eve. I need to attend to them, and I hope you guys buy this book. Thank you, Tony, for coming. Honestly, it was a pleasure to read it, man. Anytime. And it takes a lot to formulate your thoughts, put it in a book. It's a vulnerable thing for one, making content. It's a bigger vulnerable thing when you're writing it down, and people are,
thank you,
reading it. So for that, man, I thank you. Until next time, YouTube world, love you guys. I love the little likes and stuff that I'm getting. I love it. Thank you guys for watching. For real.